Today we're talking about heat saturation in aluminum. When you weld a small aluminum part, sometimes it gets so saturated with heat that it doesn't conduct heat away from the puddle anymore. The puddle gets just watery. You have to back way off of your amperage. As an example of this today, I'm going to weld a piece of tubing, a short piece of tubing, on the end of a longer piece of tubing. Now, heat will conduct this way very well, but it's got nowhere to go out here. On this piece, what typically happens is things go well for an inch or two of weld, and then this piece gets so saturated with heat that you got to back way off on your amperage. You don't have any punch to get full penetration, and you usually have to stop, let it cool, restart, and sometimes you don't get a perfect restart, and it takes a long time. So I'm going to show you a little tip on how to prevent heat saturation on something like this. Now, if you had 1,000 of these to do, you'd take the time and machine a fixture, a heat sink, a plug, like a split plug or an expansion plug or something that you could remove after it was welded, and it would draw heat out, and then you'd be okay, and it'd be worthwhile to machine that and have that fixture or plug for all 1,000 parts. For a one-off situation, a one-part situation, it may not be worth it to machine that plug. Pulse settings are going to help. They're not quite enough. I've got another little trick I'm going to show you. Let's do it.
This is 1.5 inch tubing, 6061, 070 wall thickness. I'm using 1/16 diameter, 5356 aluminum filler metal. I'm going to put 2 or 3 tacks on it. It's got a good fit up, no gaps. The aluminum tubing was cleaned on the inside with a clean wire brush, but I'm not going to do much of anything to the outside. And now comes the tip for the heat sink. I'm just going to strip the insulation off an old ground clamp, and that's going to be my heat sink. I'm going to wrap it around and around and around near the weld. I want to stay just far enough away from the joint so that it won't get in the way of the cup, and I'll twist it on there good and tight, kind of like a tourniquet, and that's going to draw a lot of heat out. I'll also be using some pulse settings, so let's go over those before we light up. I've got the machine set on about 100 amps. I'm going to use 222 hertz on the AC frequency. That should focus the arc a lot. My AC balance set to 32% cleaning. Something I have learned about pre-flow is it really helps on aluminum. At least a second, sometimes even as much as 2 seconds, gives you a better arc start. On the post-flow, I don't need that much, just enough to keep my electrodes silver. 2 pulses a second, with my base current set to around 45%. So that's not a huge difference. That's not going to back way off on the amperage, but I don't want it to. I just want it to chill a little bit. Pulse duty on 50%. I'm making this weld on a turntable, and normally I might take time to set up a prop, but I'm just going to prop right next to the weld here with a TIG finger. I wound up dabbing rod pretty much every other pulse to start with, and then as I got going, I kind of got in rhythm, and I was dabbing rod twice a second along with the pulse. And this is working way better than without the heatsink. It's controllable, and it's not getting worse as I go. On the one that I tried prior to this as kind of a difference maker or before picture, I could only weld about 1.5 inches and things just got out of hand. Now that clear cup makes it look like the tip of the electrode is bald, but that's kind of an illusion. It's actually tapered. It's kind of distorting because the tip of the electrode is right there on the edge of the cup, so it's making it look kind of funny. But I don't weld with a ball on the end of mine like that. It's got a nice taper on it, just like I would weld thick steel with. You can see by how much that wire discolored that it pulled a lot of heat out, and pretty good result. Bead was controllable from start to finish. Good penetration, even penetration on the inside. Just about what you'd want. And once again, if you had 1,000 of these to do, it would be worthwhile to machine some type of plug or heatsink, but for a one-off, this will work.
Copper is a bit more conductive than aluminum and draws heat out really well. Next best thing would be to get a ball of aluminum foil and cram it up in the end there, and then maybe even fold up some strips and wrap them around the outside.